I never knew that meeting two exhausted Norwegians in Nathia Gali would carry me into storms, earthquakes, and the deadly legends surrounding Tirich Mir.
Hey, glad you're here. Welcome to the Himalayan Journals. Here on this channel, we bring to you real stories from century old field notes. We try to keep it simple and calm here. Think of it as a documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s, covering stories of indigenous wisdom, epic expeditions, and groundbreaking science passed on just as they were recorded. Subscribe, zone out, binge.
High in the summer heat of 1949, at Nathia Gali in the northwest frontier, I first met Professor Arne Naes. He had come to Pakistan with Arne Randers Heen for a small reconnaissance, drawn to Tirich Mir after hearing of the mountain from Eric Shipton and Professor Morgenstein. They had been told that a southeast ridge might offer a way to the summit, and they set out for Chitral with that hope. I had been to Chitral myself and could offer a few maps and some modest advice, never imagining that a year later I would be living there, helping their main expedition and climbing high on the same mountain. Their 1949 reconnaissance had been troubled from the start. Above 13,000 feet, Nace and Heen hauled their own 350 pounds of equipment between 5 camps, reaching 19,000 feet only through hard, repeated journeys. Porter trouble was expected, for Chitral porters had a poor reputation. Yet I hoped the next year would prove that belief wrong. Tirich Mir itself rose above them in shining isolation. Standing more than 25,000 feet, it dominated the valley and lived in the stories of the people, who spoke of fairies guarding a castle on its summit and frogs the size of lorries living in the crevasses. These tales made our future task with porters uncertain, for many believed that anyone who climbed the mountain would die within a year. In 1949, the climbers found weather stable and slopes avalanche-proof. Though deep snow blocked the South Glacier route, they reached the southeast ridge and judged it possible for a full expedition. Back in Norway, they advised that June and July could offer clear skies, though storms were always possible. They recommended the southeast ridge as the safest line, but warned against attempting shortcut to the upper South Ridge that would be deadly in a heavy storm. Through the winter of 1949 and 1950, a major expedition was formed. 5 climbers, 2 scientists, 2 photographers, and a liaison officer were assembled under Naes. By good fortune, I had been posted to the Chitral Scouts and wrote offering help. When they arrived in Deir in early June 1950, after the scorching journey across the Sind Desert, they were exhausted. Several days' rest were needed before they could continue over the Lawari Pass and into Chitral, where the state welcomed them warmly. Soon we left the heat of the valley behind and moved north to Barum, gathering porters and establishing base camp on the 11th of June at 12,000 feet. From there, the work began. Camp 4 was set at 17,800 feet near the top of the South Barum Glacier. Avalanches swept the area, flattening tents more than once, yet no safer ground existed. The southeast ridge was inspected, but the snow conditions were poor, far worse than the year before. We then turned to the South Glacier route. On July 3rd, Camp Thayer was made at 19,000 feet, but the upper glacier had changed since 1949. Avalanches crashed down several times each day. The route was impossible. With both main routes closed, only the dangerous shortcut remained. A narrow snow ridge rose toward a steep traverse and a final climb to the south ridge. If the weather held, success was possible. If a storm arrived, escape would be nearly hopeless. Even so, it was chosen. A critical 200-foot step seemed too unstable to climb until Kvarenberg managed it with snowshoes and fixed ropes. Spirits rose, and the first assault began on the 8th of July, but events soon turned against us. Porters left. One, Mutaib, collapsed in an epileptic fit brought on by terror of the mountain's fairies. Buge developed pneumonia. An earthquake sent avalanches roaring down around us, yet Camp 8 at 23,000 feet was placed. After rest, a second attempt was launched. On 21st July, as Nace, Berg, and I reached 23,400 feet, we saw Kvarenberg far ahead. He reached the summit alone that evening. The next day, we climbed the final ridge through deep snow, tired and half-dazed, and reached the top at 6 o'clock. From there, we saw the Karakoram and Kashmir above the clouds and could look into Pakistan, Afghanistan, Russia, China, and perhaps Tibet. Back at base camp, we felt the quiet beauty of the green moraines after weeks among ice and rock. We had slight frostbite, but nothing serious. The scientists packed their samples with reluctance. Looking back, weather, planning, and the strength of the Norwegian climbers had brought success. But so had the work of the porters, especially Abdul Karim and poor Mutaib. For my part, it was a privilege to have climbed with the Norwegians and to have stood with them on the summit of Tirich Mir.